Weekend UpNate. The Weekend UpNate. Your weekly recap of news, current events, and trending stories. Let's do this. The Weekend UpNate with your host, Nate Armbruster.
Hello and welcome to episode 57 of Weekend UpNate. Thanks for being here. Again, I'm late. I'm sorry. We had company this weekend. It's hard to do this when I'm thinking about changing up the release schedule, right? Sundays always seemed possible but then again, at the same time, when I started kind of like thinking of doing a podcast, I was like, yeah, I mean, I got nothing going on ever. And then I realized that was like, during the pandemic. I mean, it wasn't necessarily that first year. I mean, this wasn't 2020, so I wasn't home. I mean, it wasn't that first quarantine, I remember when it was like literally we can't go anywhere. It wasn't that. So, but in my head, I still wasn't that busy. And I was like, you know what? Weekends are great for this. And then I realized now that, shit's pretty much back to whatever normal is now. I mean, it's a new normal, but it's normal, I mean, I haven't thought about masks or whatever, like none of that in quite some time. You know what I mean? We're back now. I mean, there's no sort of restrictions. So people are out doing whatever, as am I. And I'm like, you know what? I'm starting to do shows again. All my friends are available on weekends because they have normal lives. And it becomes this whole thing of like, what are you doing this weekend? You should do it. I'm either traveling or I'm with somebody or I'm doing, I don't know. I'm not even that, what's wild is I'm not even that social of a person, really. I mean, I only leave the house if I'm doing a show or, I mean, that's pretty much it. Or if I'm going to dinner. That's the extent of my social life. I don't do much beyond that. I don't go out. I don't go do, it's weird. If it doesn't involve food or comedy, I'm not leaving the house. But lately, I've been fortunate enough to have been somewhat busy. I've had a lot of shows. I've been running around doing stuff, and it kind of got in the way of the podcast schedule. So for that, I apologize. If you're actually a consistent listener, if I'm bringing this up and no one even noticed, that could be it too. But I'm aware. Also, I'm thinking about just doing this midweek. I think it's easier that way, I might even change the name of the podcast. So it might just be, but it'll be the same thing. I'm just working on tweaking a few things, that's all. So, thanks for your patience during all of that. And at least the episodes are still coming, right? Speaking of reality, okay, I've got this little day job scenario, right? I work for a website or a cluster of websites that makes we make like it's like BuzzFeed or whatever, right? You make little articles about whatever's going on the internet. It's fun. It's a cool job. It's saved my ass these last few years financially. So pretty much during the day, 9 to 5, I'm working on something. And I find that working from home is like the best thing that's ever happened to me, which this is also the first like quote unquote real job I've ever had, one that actually pays like a livable wage and like doesn't involve delivering pizzas or anything like that. You know what I'm trying to say? Like I'm not really cut out for most things, but this seems to work pretty well with my lifestyle. So I've become a hermit over the last few years because this really started during the pandemic. The 2020, like the week everything shut down is when I got this job. It could not have been, I'm probably the only person whose life actually got better during the pandemic. And for that, I'm thankful. But now that things are like opening up again, and I mean, like I said, we're pretty much back to whatever it was before, right? It's like, I would say it's official now. Comedy clubs are seating people, on top of each other again. So I'm like, okay, everybody seems to have figured out what their comfort level is, right? I mean, sure, I still see people in masks sometimes. Like I had somebody in the front row last weekend wearing a mask and nobody gave a shit, right? It's like, hey, if that's what makes you feel comfortable to be here, as long as you bought a ticket, I don't give a shit what you're wearing. You know what I mean? As long as you're comfortable coming to the show, that's great. So whatever works for you. And I think that's the sensible way to go about life in this day and age, right? is to just, okay, if you don't like it, fine. Whatever. If you like it, great. Why are you yelling? That's my attitude about most of this stuff. Okay. Now, if you know me, you know I'm addicted to coffee. The coffee is the best thing. First of all, caffeine's a drug. It's a legal drug. And I love that. I love that it's legal because it's also it's not deadly, really, right? I mean, maybe in crazy amounts. I'll have to look into this. I mean, I'm sure you can take too much, but I think you have to take a lot to really harm yourself. By the way, I don't know. Okay, I've had a lot of coffee though. In one sitting, I mean, I've finished a pot of coffee before, and although I didn't feel great, I wasn't like I wasn't gonna die, So lately I've been getting into, nicer coffee, right? Because now it's like I can't touch like Maxwell House and that kind of stuff anymore. It's just disgusting to me. It doesn't matter how it's made. I don't care if it's in a French press. It's just disgusting. I'm getting bougie with my coffee, okay? And one of my favorite things to do is to check out different types of coffee places, right? I mean, I don't even mind Starbucks that much. People love to shit on it, like they have this perfect palate. And it's like, honestly, I'll take Starbucks over most coffee. It's fine. And also it's just the convenience of it, So I'm not like snotty about it. If I'm going to go out and buy a cup of coffee, I'm going to like a nicer place. So here in Chicago, there are a few places that I like to go. And sometimes, especially lately, it's nice to get out of the apartment because I'm cooped up all day, right? So I'll take my laptop down to this coffee place and I'll sit there and I'll just work all day. I'll literally be there for 6 hours or whatever, and nobody cares. It's the best. And this particular place is like super small. Maybe seats, maxed out 20 people. So I show up and there's 2 other tables. So there's 4 people there already just sitting, and the rest of it's wide open. And they have, I wouldn't say comfortable chairs, little 2-drink tables, like a little tiny thing. And then they have 2 sets of what I would call like a living room chair, not a recliner, but something with like is it a wingback chair? You know what I'm talking about? Something a little more comfortable. It's got like cushions and it's like upholstered and everything. And it's like they're next to each other with a table in between. Now there's 2 sets of those, okay? I hope this is making sense. If it's not, I apologize. But I sit in the corner one, and I'm minding my own business. I'm sitting there for hours working on my stuff, and then people come and go all day. A table of 3 comes in, sits there for an hour or whatever, you know what I mean? And I have headphones in, minding my own business, and all of a sudden I notice like there's nobody in there. No one at all. I'm in there by myself, and it's kind of nice. It's peaceful. They got some music playing. I have headphones in. I'm minding my own business. And this woman walks around the corner because I'm kind of like hidden in the corner, and she sits right next to me. Okay, there are 20 chairs open. And I'm trying to not be... I don't like confrontation, okay? I'm not going to sit there and be like, are you seriously going to sit right next to me when all these other chairs are open? Literally 20 chairs. Also, she couldn't even make the argument. This is me just making up arguments in my head now, but if I had confronted her about how ridiculous she was because I would never do that, okay? I know that. And that's kind of like where I'm coming from with this is it's like a treat people how you want to be treated sort of thing. Okay, I would never do that to somebody, all right? I would have picked another chair. And, and now if it was full, okay, let's say there was like one of a few chairs left to be like, whatever, you got to do what you got to do. That's different. But there was nobody else around. And she didn't do anything. She brought a book. She was sitting there reading a book. She didn't even get a drink. There was no coffee. Nobody brought anything out to her. So I'm trying to not make it clear that I'm annoyed, but I'm also trying to make her a little self-aware. Like, hey, maybe I could have picked another chair to read in, It's like going to the movies and somebody sits right next to you, There's like, dude, come on. You should know better, right? Are you messing with me? But this woman seemed like, she seemed nice. I didn't say a word to her. She didn't say anything to me. She wasn't like, is anybody sitting here? Like, even that, I would be like, maybe I should have just said that. Maybe I should have just been like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm waiting for a friend. But then the deep down, I'm like, no, because she would just sit across the room and wait for this person to show up. And then when she realized nobody was showing up, she would have judged me. You know what I mean? This is what goes on in my head while you guys do whatever it is you do. This is when you're at work, you just imagine me in these situations. This is why I don't leave the house. Anyway, so yeah, I sat there and took it, and luckily I was almost done. So I was like, you know what, I'll get out of here. I'm going to give it enough time that it's not obvious that I'm getting up because she was sitting there, Oh, and by the way, like I said, I'm fine with whatever anyone's comfort level is with, COVID stuff, right? I don't care anymore. I'm tired of hearing people because it's just you're at this point we're not going to change anyone's mind, right? I don't care if you're right or wrong. Let's just do whatever it is you got to do. However, I was hoping that during this we could at least learn a thing or two about germs, because that we can all agree is real, right? I mean, maybe when you sneeze, do it into your shirt. Or, maybe when you cough, cover your mouth. That's the kind of stuff that I was hoping we would take away from this. Maybe wash your hands after you sneeze into your, you know what I mean? This is disgusting. And this woman is one of these. This is what really bothered me the most about her sitting next to me, is she's sniffling and she's coughing and she's sneezing and she's disgusting. That was the worst part. It's one thing if you're going to sit, a foot away from me and mind your own business. It's another to start coughing and sneezing, and all of a sudden I'm like, am I gonna get sick just sitting here? I'm sorry if this is sounding a little ranty, which it is. All right, what do you guys say we talk about some stupid news stuff that happened this week? All right, our first story. Okay, I don't know if any of you have a first generation iPhone. I'm one of those people that always waits. I mean, I'll wait absurdly long before I upgrade my phone. Like, I think the newest I don't know what I have, the 11 or something. I mean, it's a few years old, and some people, I mean, I know some people with like a 4 or 5, and I'm like, how is that even working? But I bet you didn't think anything. Did you ever think any of these would ever be valuable, like collector's items? Because I sure didn't, and I wish I had known this going back. And this only when was the first iPhone? 2007. Something like that. So this woman had a first generation iPhone, unopened and wrapped in plastic in the box, and it was auctioned last week. She auctioned it off because she could. So this is how, and I'm not going to tell you how much she made yet, because it's almost infuriating. And this is, I mean, talking about being lucky, okay? Holding on to one of these, would you think, like, what am I going to do with this? I mean, I have the box to every Apple product I own for some reason. I just can't seem to find a reason to throw it away, even though there's plenty of good reasons. So this woman had the first generation iPhone. Her name's Karen, of all names. So this woman, Karen, said she received it as a gift in 2007 and decided to leave it in the box because she had just gotten a new phone and didn't want to replace it. Green, who operates a tattoo shop in New Jersey, said she became interested in the value of a vintage iPhone when she heard about another unopened iPhone selling for $40,000. Here's where it gets interesting, though, okay? So she took the phone on a 2019, quote, treasure hunt segment for the TV show Doctor and the Diva, and was told that the phone would likely sell for about $5,000. Not bad, right? For a gift that you held on to for so long. The estimate turned out to be quite an understatement, though, when the phone, which originally retailed for $599, sold for $63,356.40. That's down to the penny, because that's the kind of facts you get here on the podcast, all right? She said the proceeds will be invested into her tattoo shop. I mean, how do you know that there's even going to be a collector's market for this kind of shit? I'm tired of all these people getting lucky. When am I going to get my break, right? No one's going to gift me an iPhone, and I'm going to hold on to it for, 10 plus years, and, one day I'll sell it. I mean, this thing was wrapped in plastic, though. I mean, it was mint condition. She didn't even open it. So it's like, I mean, so lucky. Also lucky she didn't just get rid of it. And apparently at the time, she didn't want to switch phone plans, because at the time you needed like a specific phone company to have the iPhone. Was it T-Mobile or something like that? And look, I think this is a cool story, but it's also kind of bizarre to me because it's like, first of all, I get it. Like, if I can sell something and make $64,000 almost off of it, I mean, I'm all there, right? But imagine if she sold it in 2019 for like $5,000, Also, who the hell is dropping 63 grand on the first iPhone? Okay, like what? I can't believe that. I mean, you can't really use it. I mean, it's not going to work, right? I'm just finding it harder and harder to be happier for these people who get these big breaks. Maybe I'm jealous. Actually, that's exactly it. I'm just jealous. Because it's so easy to be like, man, if only I could go back in time and hold on to a first iPhone for, the next decade without losing it in a move or selling it or just throwing it away, or trading it in for a newer phone or something. These lucky people, All right, on to the next story. Congrats to Karen, by the way, for being one lucky son of a bitch, Oh, I'm so jealous. Is it clear? All right, now this next guy, okay, a guy with we found him, folks. The man with the world's longest tongue. And, it's 3.9, that's 3.97 inches. I mean, I'm sure he would round up, though, So a California man whose 3.97 inch tongue earned him a Guinness World Record that said he's found an unusual way to put his tongue to work. And it's not what you're thinking, okay? Get your mind out of the gutter. He paints with it. This guy uses his long-ass tongue to paint. Also, so I always wondered about the Guinness Book of World Records, right? They got to go, okay, we got this guy in California who says he has the world's longest tongue. I mean, do you at least get him to send a photo first to make sure, the trip out there is worth it? Like, okay, well, let's see, how long is it? Okay, that could be pretty long, Like, you got to at least get some proof that you're going out there for an actual thing. Like you can't just take his word for it, right? So then they show up, who's the guy that has to measure it? Could you imagine that? You show up. This is someone's job, by the way, at the Guinness World Records. It's like, all right, I got to go to California this weekend and measure this grown man's tongue. Okay? That's somebody bought a flight, showed up at this guy's house with a ruler and said, hey, okay, stick out your tongue. And by the way, how long does that take? 2 minutes? So this guy, when it was officially measured at 3.97 inches from tip to teeth in 2012, he showed off his unusual painting skills. So this is how he paints, by the way. He wraps his tongue in plastic wrap, and then he dips it in the paint, and then he draws on a canvas with it, okay? And he said, and this is where, talk about being a lucky, I would rather have the first iPhone, don't get me wrong, but this is also another where it's like, what? Well, I mean, if you got the longest tongue in the world, you choose to paint with it, okay. It's not necessarily, I mean, maybe I'd go more the OnlyFans route with it. That seems easier and more fun, truthfully. But the record breaker said he's been given the nickname Licasso, okay, for his unusual painting method. And his paintings have sold for up to $1,200. Get out of here. And you guys should look this guy up. Look up Licasso. That seems like a sketchy word or nickname to Google, but this guy paints with his tongue, and the paintings, I got to be honest, are dog shit. Okay, I've seen much nicer paintings in a first grade classroom. Okay, and if you're wondering when the last time I was in a first grade classroom it was when I was in first grade. You'll be happy to know that. But yeah, so here's this. I don't know if it's the sources I'm using for these stories or what, but it seems like every story I pick every week involves somebody being much luckier than I am. But that's like this is like, I'm trying to find stuff to talk about that isn't school shootings or chemical fires, okay, and war. Again, I'm tired of talking about that stuff, so I'm going silly with it. And without this podcast, I don't know if you would know who Licasso was. So this guy, as far as I'm concerned, owes me some money. All right, on to the next story. Here's the headline. California man earns the world record for 2,995 consecutive Disneyland visits. Now, I don't know if there's any, I don't like to judge, But if there's one way to find out a guy has issues, it's, to ask how many times he's been to Disneyland. Okay, there's no, so let me just read this. A California man who visited Disneyland in Anaheim for 2,995 consecutive days was rewarded another is a Guinness World Record certificate. Okay, this is this guy's dream. At least the tongue guy, at least Licasso, has some sort of talent tied to his odd world record. Okay, this guy's 50 years old. This guy is a 50-year-old grown man who went to Disneyland 2,995 times. Okay, I don't know if I could go once, to be honest with you. I don't have children. And I know, I get it. It's kind of for all ages, right? They have everything. They have attractions for adults. That's fine. But 2,000? I mean, by the way, you couldn't go 5 more days and make it 3,000 just for like a nice round number? Like, what happened that day? I mean, you can't make it 5 more days after 2,000. I don't, like, that's like 8 years, right? Right? That is nuts. Imagine, okay, I haven't even been in my relationship. I mean, I'm engaged to a woman I've known for 7 years. You know what I mean? This is nuts to me. And we haven't even spent every single day together. I don't even know how you, employees of the park haven't even been there. I mean, they at least take days off. Like, how do you do this, man? How do you do this? So his daily visits began in 2012, and they ended just shy of 3,000 visits when the park closed down due to COVID. Okay, I mean, come on. Can we just kind of not count the pandemic? We're going to blame it on that? Really? He still could have showed up to the park. Okay, I mean, just because it's closed. I mean, if he really... Also, how pissed would you be if this was like your dream, your sad, sad dream, is to be the person who has spent the most time at Disneyland, or, the most consecutive days, and then the pandemic hits? I mean, did anybody have it worse than this guy? So he chronicled his daily Disney trips on social media, started getting media attention after a 60th consecutive visit to the park, and he made international headlines in 2017 when he made his 2000th visit and was awarded with a backpack full of gifts by Disney officials. Okay, this guy's 50. No one's looking into his background, making sure he's not a creep. There's something. This is like a guy. This is the type of guy that becomes like a mall Santa, where I'm like, okay, I get why you maybe think it's fun, but also you're a grown man who wants kids sitting on your lap. Maybe that's not the fairest comparison, but I still wonder what it is about. You know what I like? Why, man? Why? So he said he hasn't been back to Disneyland since the start of the pandemic, but he is hoping to make it in time for Disney's 100th anniversary celebrations later. Imagine really doing this, though. I mean, he has to have like an annual pass, right? A place a thing that he can go in. I mean, he's not buying a ticket every day, right? Imagine going through all of that, spending 8 years of your life doing this, and they award you, right? With a backpack full of just shitty Disney merch. And also, what was the last world record? Is anybody going to beat this ever? Is this going to be one? Because I think it'd be kind of fun to go down the world records and find one that I could potentially beat. I think it'd be a fun little thing to talk about at my funeral, Is anybody really going to... Like, he probably could have stopped at 100, but 2,995? And he's 50. Is he going to have time to do this again if he wants to break his own record, But, yeah, man, I don't know. I don't understand. I don't get people who do this kind of stuff. But then again, I'm the guy with a podcast. Maybe I have nothing to really... I can't really talk. You know what I mean? This is what I do with my free time. Maybe he is... At least he's got some good food out of the deal, I'm sure. I mean, eating Disneyland park food every day. I'm over here sitting in my apartment recording a podcast. Maybe we're not so different after all. All right, that's going to do it for me this week. If you enjoyed the show, please hit subscribe. Tell your friends about it. Do all that stuff. And do me a favor. Check out the album if you haven't yet. And subscribe to my email list. And you won't miss out on any cool stuff coming up. I'll actually be releasing the video version, the special, if you will, I think next week. And I'll be posting most of that on my Instagram in clip form. So if you like social media. Please follow me at Nate Comedy, and look out for more stand-up stuff and podcast stuff. Anyway, if you're still listening to this, I appreciate it. Thank you, and we'll talk to you next week on a brand new episode of Weekend UpNate.
You've been listening to the Weekend UpNate with Nate Armbruster, and you liked it, didn't you? If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Weekend UpNate.
Bye-bye.